welcome to today's episode of the Balanced Approach podcast. I'm your host, Louis Padian. I hope that you're doing well and are enjoying the podcast and the topics we've covered so far. These podcasts are released every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, so be sure to subscribe wherever you are listening to be kept up to date.
So today we're going to be talking about the key to making changes and how to make sure these changes stick. And whilst I mentioned on the previous episode around potentially if you're waiting for the new year, it might set you back. Some of you might want to make changes, and that's perfectly fine, but if that's not for you, this will be definitely useful for the future for you if you're thinking about making healthy changes in the new year. And one of the key things that I see when I work with people is, or if I speak to them when they try to make a change, is this idea of perfectionism, that they are trying to find the perfect plan, perfect workout. They're trying to eat perfectly. And whilst that's very noble and comes with good intentions, actually, it's probably one of the things that sets them back and ends up in a lot of people failing, because that bar for perfectionism is just so high and you're striving to reach it. And if you don't get there, it can be really disheartening. And you end up going to this sort of dichotomous thinking, what we'd say is like black or white thinking, where you go, well, if I can't be perfect, then what's the point? And actually, there's a real good secret ingredient that you can add in there, which I term CIA. And the reason that I call it CIA, because it stands for consistent imperfect action. And this will help you get past that perfectionist trait and allow you to just take action. Taking action is better than sitting there waiting for the right moment, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for the perfect recipe. And one of the phrases that I love is that imperfect action beats perfect inaction. And it's just about you doing anything you can, doing as well as you can, having that compassionate element that we want in the undertones of everything that we do, but having that in your behaviours going, well, I'm trying my best out, and you know what, if I'm not at a 10 out of 10 today, 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10 is good enough today. And you know what, if I keep stringing loads of 5s and 6s together, maybe one day I'll 6s and 7s, 7 and 8, and that's how you build progress over time. So when a real good example for this is that if you've come home from work and you're absolutely shattered, it's Monday evening, it's dark outside, and you sit there and go, well, I was meant to start my diet today on Monday, and one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get my 5 a day in there, no processed foods, I was going to work out this evening, and you haven't done any of those things yet. And this is where that dichotomous thinking comes into play, where people might go, well, stuff it, I'm just going to order a takeaway and sit here and wallow, feel guilty, and then shame comes in as well. And we want to try and avoid that. And actually this CIA, this consistent imperfect action, actually means that we reset our sort of levels for where we're trying to hit our goals, we reevaluate them, and instead of going, well, I'm going to try and eat 5-10 vegetables per day, actually going, well, where I'm at now, 1 or 2, let's try and hit 2 consistently each day. Yeah, it's not the 5 out of 5 a day that everyone says that I should have, but 2 is better than nothing. And actually, you consistently hitting 2 allows us to build up momentum, that confidence and competence with these skills, and then you can go, right, where can I squeeze one more in? And then be consistent with that as well. And the same with the exercise side of things as well. If you're coming home and go, well, I need to train for an hour, I need to go to the gym, left it till 6 o'clock, it's the busiest time, and no, I just can't be bothered, so I'm not going to go. It's going to take me half an hour to get there, half an hour to get back, I haven't got the time, I haven't got the energy. You going, well, I'm going to go for a 5-10 minute walk, and that's better than nothing. Yes, it's not perfect, but actually we're trying to build that consistency, and you building that consistency over time instead of going, well, I'm going back to myself at the gym. First week of January, this is something we see. Somebody goes to the gym 7 days a week, actually runs themselves to the ground with the best intentions and all the effort, and it's effort that is one of the things that everyone usually has. It's not effort that people are lazy or anything like that. It's where we're trying to focus that effort, make sure that effort's not going to waste. And people are probably better off setting the bar a lot lower and going, right, I'm going to go for a 10-15 minute walk most days, each day, and build that consistency over time. And then by the end of 2-3 months time, that's built up to half hour, 45 minutes. They might have included some strength or resistance training in there. They might have had some group activities in there, and to build that consistency rather than trying to jump in at the deep end and having that sink or swim mentality. So it's a really useful tool that I use a lot with my clients, and it's something that is often overlooked or sniggered at, that it's one of the key things that is almost too easy to do. And people go, well, I can push myself further. Well, actually, starting a bit easier allows you to be more consistent with it. And that consistency trumps that perfectionist, infrequent, on or off plan mentality any day of the week. And it's just about us building that consistency over time. So if you're trying something over the new year, so if you're trying to get more fruits and vegetables in, if you're trying to be a bit more active, then starting small and being consistent with them is the best way to do this consistent, imperfect action. So not only do I find it works with clients or works with people in general that I work with, but the research supports this as well. There's a few key papers that I thought I'd mention. So a 2006 meta-analysis found that consistent engagement in small, achievable behaviours was associated with significant likelihood of goal success compared to people who did them infrequently or had that all or nothing mentality. And that's what we're trying to step away from. Often it's really sexy to go all in, to go on a 21-day fast or a detox diet where you cut everything out. Actually, it's probably more sustainable, more effective, and from my experience, it definitely is, to go into a moderate change in your diet, be a bit more focused, a bit more active each day, monitoring that a bit better. And it's all unsexy stuff, and often it's the unsexy stuff that works long term. And if you want to be exactly where you are right now or worse off in 3, 6, this time next year, month's time, then crack on, do the detox diets, do the extreme diets, but you end up back at square one, if not worse. And actually, what I found working with people over months and years and supporting them through it, we've made phenomenal progress. Yes, it's not the quickest progress, but they're much happier on that journey. It's less of a strain. They're more consistent and they're able to balance life a lot better rather than shutting everything else off, focus on this one thing, going balls to the wall until they can't take it anymore, and then they fall off the wagon, which is something that we don't want to do. We don't want to encourage. Actually taking it step by step, understanding that there might be step backs and might be times where we need to reevaluate or have a maintenance phase, but we can get so much further and be a lot more effective and a lot happier in the long run as well. So this was also backed up by a 2010 study that found that people who were making small and consistent changes with their eating behaviours and were more physically active were more likely to lose weight and maintain that weight loss over a long time. And that's exactly what I said with working with a lot of people, is that you being more moderate. And when I lost loads of weight myself, when I went from 125 kilos down to about 95 kilos, that was over the course of 3 years. And when I sat down and figured out the numbers, on average, I was about 115 calories deficit per day, which is tiny. It's probably going to be a big inaccuracy, but we wouldn't be able to consistently track that with a huge amount of accuracy. But that's led to me losing about half a pound every 2 or 3 weeks on average across that period. Yes, it took a lot longer, but it allowed me to lose a significant amount of weight, have a bit more of a balanced lifestyle in that approach, enjoy the process of it, and also stay there once I got there as well, plus or minus like a few kilos either way. So the research supports it. 2 of the papers, and this one I found the statistic was really interesting. So a 2017 study found that consistent imperfect action led to a 98% success rate in achieving goals compared to an 8% success rate for those who pursue perfection. That's phenomenal. And hopefully those numbers can ring true for you as well. That if you think about the consistent imperfect action and taking your expectations and dropping them down to a more manageable, attainable level, 98% successful. That's huge. That's almost guaranteed. So if I could guarantee you to be where you want to be and where you want to be by the end of January or February, and go, right, take a bit more of a managed approach and set our sights on June maybe, it might not be as easy to sell, it might not be as attractive or as sexy, but if I can say, well, I can guarantee we can get you there by then, and you won't have to cut out the foods you enjoy, you won't feel too stressed or strained, you'll still be able to perform in other areas of your life. In fact, all things that we're doing will add to the quality of your life, and that's why we want to make a change instead of taking away, thinking about less all the time, thinking about more enjoyment, more happiness, more balance in your life. Then you probably snap my hand off that eventually. So if you want to be sitting in the same position you are now, wanting to make these changes in 6 months' time, a year's time, a couple of years' time, you've been here before, then maybe you need to have a look at your approach, be more sustainable, more consistent, imperfect in your actions. So when we have a look at this in regards to what practical things can you do that are probably not going to be perfect. So I broke it down to a few different areas. So if we're thinking about exercise, instead of going, right, join the gym, I'm going to go 5 days a week, going, right, well, what's the minimum? Having a minimum and a maximum that we want to hit. And this is often something I do a lot with my clients, is going, instead of going, I'm going to go 4 days a week, 5 days a week, go, well, we're going to go 2 to 4 times a week, because you know what, life crops up, and actually you can get a huge amount of benefits just from training twice a week in the gym. If we do more than 2, fantastic. That's going to add up on the benefits for us. But times if you go, right, I'm going to hit the gym 4 times a week, and it gets to Friday and you haven't gone yet, or you've only been once, you already started to beat yourself up by not hitting that 4. And for setting more manageable range, it allows us to make huge amounts of steps forward with our progress when we can, but also take the pressure off so much when things get a bit on top of us or life's a bit busy. And the same with time as well, dedicate to it. So if you're going out for a gym session or a run or a walk, it doesn't have to be the full amount that you committed to beforehand. Having a look at the amount that we're doing, I'm only sitting now with patients and saying they want to get more active, and currently they're struggling to walk up the road. And the thing that we focus on is just making sure actually each day we make an attempt to put our shoes on and get to that front door. That's it. If they get to the front door and they don't want to do it, or they haven't got time, or that's all they can manage, you know what, we're building a consistent habit of putting our shoes on. Yes, it's not going for the 10-15 minute walk, but actually as you'll see over time and over months, they got there, made huge steps forward, and actually having someone on their side that was a bit more empathetic, a bit more compassionate in their situation, and actually wasn't telling them that they're nowhere near where they should be, that they're not doing X, Y, Z, actually going, well, let's meet you where you're at. And this is something that I often speak about, is meet yourself where you're at. And going, well, if I was to meet someone who was in my situation in the street, what would I say to them? I'd probably say, do the best that you can. So start with compassion. And we go, right, so what do you think you can manage? Again, managing expectations. And going, right, so let's put a plan of action in place. Right, we're going to start a bit lower than we probably would like to be, but you know what, we'll get there. Having that confidence and belief in themselves and building the habit of getting to the front door, getting your shoes on, is so powerful, because that's often the first stumbling block for people. They build up all these steps in their head, what they've got to do, when actually it's the first few steps. We can build momentum, and by the time that you've got your shoes on and got to the front door, but you've made all the hard decisions already, and actually walking up and down the road isn't as daunting. If you're sat there, you're not ready, you haven't got your shoes on, and the door's miles away, then it seems like a lot bigger task. So just breaking down step by step and making more manageable chunks. Same with healthy eating. So instead of going, right, I'm going to cut out all this junk food, which is a term that I don't really like actually anyway, it would be, let's have a look at what we can reduce and what we can replace. And instead of cutting things out that we enjoy, actually having a look at moderating them a little bit better. So instead of having that all or nothing approach with these foods, because what we tend to see is that people cut out these foods for a certain amount of time, and they might fall off the wagon or have a binge or a cheat weekend, which are the foods that they've cut out because they've been craving them for so long. Actually allowing us to have a little bit more often means that it's going to be more sustainable in the long term with regards to their diet, their habits and behaviours. So if we can do that and manage that a bit better and reduce and replace rather than remove, then I think that's a much more sustainable and better approach, and like I said, makes it much more enjoyable long term. And same with takeaways. People often demonise takeaways, and they're a really sociable event. They're a really delicious event, and a lot of times, so potentially having a look at reducing and replacing those takeaways. So potentially it might be a fake away at home where you make the same dish that you're going to order in or usually order in, and you can moderate the calories a bit better if that's what your goal is in regards to weight loss. Or reducing the frequency of them, so instead of having it a couple of times a week, you might be having it once a week, and make it a bit more special. Or having a look at other takeaway options that you have that potentially going to have better options or better options within that takeaway that are aligning with your goals. So we're not saying you can't have these things, but actually working with you and what you want to achieve long term, not just in regards to your weight loss, but in your overall enjoyment, social aspect, financial health, all these different aspects when we take into consideration. And instead of just focusing on this weight loss at all costs, which usually leaves people more miserable, hating their diet, hating their activity, hating life in general, actually how can we add more life, more enjoyment, and more life and thrivingness? Thrivingness is probably not a word, but into their day-to-day lives. So that's the other one. Two other ones are stress and sleep. So instead of managing or letting stress build up over time and thinking that you need to do this big thing to reduce your stress and taking them away, actually having a look at those micro steps that we can take each day with regards to having better conversations, taking time away and figuring out how to fill your cup, Sleep's another common one, closely linked in with stress as well, that sleep doesn't have to be perfect, and trying to make it perfect probably will add more stress and strain in your life. But doing little things like having a bit more of a slightly more regular bedtime routine, managing your caffeine in the afternoon, and again, coffee, another one, just switching to decaf. So we're not saying you can't have coffee in the afternoon, just swapping for a decaf reduces the caffeine content massively, and means that caffeine's less likely to affect your sleep in the evening, which will help you feel better next day, and you probably won't lean into caffeine so much. So as you can see, they're all interrelated, and these small little things, you don't just have to pick one, you could pick 2 or 3 to slightly improve. So you could go, right, I'm going to aim for 1 or 2 portions of fruit and veg per day, where I'm currently at maybe 1, maybe none. Okay, and then go for a 10-minute walk each day, and I'm going to have a bit more of a regular bedtime routine. And none of those are perfect solutions to their problems, but they'll all have, if done consistently, have a huge impact and rippling effect long term. So what we've covered today is around perfectionism and how it's probably going to hold people back, and actually the secret ingredient is consistent, imperfect action. And remember that when you're going forward, think about, instead of aiming for that perfectionist, instead of going for a 10 out of 10 or a 0 out of 10, right, what's a 6 or a 7 out of 10? Because we're stacking up 6s and 7s, we're going to be making progress to where we want to be. Reducing your expectations is massive, and focusing on the CIA, the consistent, imperfect action, will help you build that momentum and that consistency. And once you start getting that, building that confidence and competence with these, that's when you can start to ramp it up to a level that suits you. It doesn't have to ever reach 10 out of 10. You could be happy enough going from either a 0 or a 10 to right, 5, 6, and 7. You know what? I'm happy at hitting my 3 or 4 portions of fruit and veg per day. Yeah, more might be better, but actually might be lots of reasons pulling you back from that, and pushing that too far might lead to some imbalance elsewhere. And like I said, this can be applied not just to one aspect, but lots of different aspects all at once for you to get huge improvements and that ripple effect throughout your life. So thinking about your food, thinking about your activity, thinking about your stress and your sleep, those are 4 key areas that I usually help people on. But it might be around your finances, it might be around your relationships. Those sorts of things are really important as well, and have impacts on how you feel day to day, food choices and your activity. So it's all interlinked. So think about different ways that you can make these changes, or the way that you might, there's some things that you might want to make a change at the moment. And instead of going for that 10 out of 10, think about a consistent, imperfect action.
So there you have it. Thank you very much for listening to today's episode of the Balanced Approach podcast. If you have any questions, queries, or would like to reach out to me, please do. I am at Louis Padian Nutrition, which is at LOUISPADIAN Nutrition on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all other social media platforms. If you're looking for support in achieving your goals and living a healthier, happier, and more balanced life in the process, click the link below and inquire about working with me. Remember to subscribe to the Balanced Approach podcast wherever you're listening for more insightful episodes, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.